Recently, I have been enjoying the SRPG genre. I found myself surrounded by some quality titles both through remasters and the indie space. Last year, I had the pleasure to play the exceptional Fellseal. This indie gem provided a large amount of replay and value to the player. The game had an addictive progression that gave the player's units lots of different classes to choose from. As you leveled up your classes of your units, they would then unlock an additional class. And it was surprising how many classes that were available. Each of the characters could keep some skills and abilities that they could take with them when they changed their class, so that you could really add that personalization to each of your units. On the other side of things, I had the pleasure to play the recent remaster of Langrisser. This series is both familiar, charming, and addictive. I was impressed with the first game, and I eagerly want to start the second one. My point with this is that I found myself in a sea of quality SRPG titles, and I'm continually searching for new experiences. One gem missed me when it was first released, but now I have the opportunity to play Mercenary Wings: The False Phoenix. This is my first entry into the series, and I found this game to be both familiar, addictive, and very enjoyable. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review for Mercenary Wings: The False Phoenix. Mercenary Wings is a strategy RPG that provides you with a lot of content. You will be spending most of your time in battles. At the start of each encounter, you are tasked with deciding where you want to place your units. You only have a small area to place your units on, so the order of your units will be more based on who you want to lead the charge, or how you want your units arranged for a potential early buff spell. After you have placed your units on the field, then you can begin your next turn. Since the combat is turn-based, you don't need to worry about the enemies attacking you in real time. At the start of the battle, you can survey the battlefield and see what you're up against, what terrain is there, along with if there are any boss characters you need to fight. Then you are free to use your units as you see fit. While on the battlefield, you will need to pay attention to a few different things depending on the unit. For example, archers can attack you in an area, but gunmen can only attack in a straight line. This is important to be aware of these things because enemies will retaliate when you attack them if they can. But if you can exploit their weaknesses, then you can fight more effectively. When you choose to attack an enemy, you need to keep an eye on the accuracy rating of your attacks. The position of your attacking unit to their enemy will affect your accuracy. If you approach the enemy from the side or the back, this will increase your chances of hitting them. The variety of units that you fight and control keeps the combat engaging. You have the expected swordsmen, tank-like knights, and range fighters. The most fun of these units are the magic users. These are important units to keep alive because the offensive spells that they can do cause a lot of damage and can affect a large area, along with being able to heal most of your allies. You also have users that can summon monsters to fight for you or take some of the heat off of your main units. Learning the ins and outs to the different units is really rewarding. It is important to note that when one of your characters dies in combat, you have a limited amount of turns to revive them and get them back into the fight. You can revive teammates through items or through spells. Depending on the difficulty, you will have more or less turns to be able to get them back up. While it isn't combat related, but it is something to keep an eye out for other than enemies, is that during enemy encounters, you can find these treasure chests that are scattered around the map. These are really important to seek out and open. They will give you useful items like rare weapons and armor, along with puzzle pieces that can be used in the shop. Defeating enemies will provide your units with experience points for leveling up, and finishing battles will reward your units with skill points. Level ups will increase your skills a bit, but the skill points are really the important thing, and they give some personalization to improving your units. Skill points can be used to unlock different skills or passive buffs. Along with this, when you hit a certain level, you can unlock new classes for your units, and you can use skill points to unlock those, providing you with new options. Classes will improve your character's stats, along with giving them a new leadership ability for combat encounters. When you place your first unit down in the battle, that is your leader, and the leader's abilities can improve different stats of your party members, or they come with different skills like being able to heal each of your units at the end of each turn. Defeating enemies will also net you with gold that you can also use to buy different potions and equipment. The shop is where you can use those puzzle pieces that you found before to buy rare weapons or unlock special classes for your units. As you can see, from the battles to the progression, there's a lot to keep you playing. It's really fun to grind out more levels and skill points. You can do this through the unlockable side encounters. I do wish that the game allowed you to play the game on the hardest setting from the outset and not requiring you to first beat the game. I found the harder modes more rewarding with the tougher fights and needing to think more in how you prepare for your combat encounters. Along with this, the harder difficulties allow you to face off against harder side missions that you previously did not have access to. All of this is not anything new, but what the developers do for the gameplay and progression is familiar and very enjoyable. The story is pretty enjoyable as long as you're not expecting a lot of depth. The story starts out with you following a group of mercenaries that are helping out one faction that is in the middle of a civil war. The first few missions have you recruiting allies and growing your faction. As the story progresses, you will learn more and more about your main characters, and there's some humor with the side characters. There comes a point in the story where you need to make a choice to stay with the current faction or leave it. Depending on your choice, the story takes a completely different direction and you get to control new characters. This is where more of the replay value comes into play to be able to see how the story plays out based on having that other decision and playing with different characters. The choice and how it affects the game was unexpected and appreciated. The story isn't the most engaging narrative, but it's good enough to keep you invested in the world. The character variety, different enemy units, and locations kept me engaged in the combat. I like how my second playthrough challenged me more with harder enemies, and it required me to really play the game more cautiously than I did in my first playthrough. The leveling, loot, and skill point progression made me want to replay the side battles to really level up my characters. The story was entertaining enough, with a good choice that gives you yet another reason to play the game. I had a very enjoyable time with this title, and I did encounter a few flaws along the way. On the normal setting, you can cheese a few enemies so you can get them to attack you and essentially bite away at the enemy forces. This is harder to do on the harder modes because the enemies are a lot tougher and will take you out quicker. But overall, I wish the enemies were just a bit more aggressive and, along with that, just a bit smarter. It doesn't take long for you to figure out how the enemies work, and I wish that they kept me guessing more. This is an area that I could see annoying veteran players. One annoying aspect of the game is that when you unlock a new class for your unit, the game unequips all your items. This is really annoying, and I wish that it only unequipped the items that it couldn't have on that new class. And as I said before, I wish the game's hardest setting was available from the start. Lastly, the soundtrack is pretty good. There's some nice tracks that play during some of the emotional beats, along with a good amount of battle music. Here are a few tracks from the game. Overall, Mercenary Wings: The False Phoenix is a strategy RPG that doesn't really do anything new for the genre, but it does do a lot right, and through that, it creates a familiar and very compelling game. The battles bring a good amount of variety through the different units you get to control, and I enjoyed learning the ins and outs. Leveling up and earning skill points never got old, and it always gave me something to grind towards. The story is decent with a nice choice that adds some replay value and gives you a reason to go through the game again and experience it differently. I do wish that the enemies were a bit smarter and more aggressive, and the soundtrack was very enjoyable as well. I highly recommend you check this one out, and thank you very much for watching.